Coming up on Now See This. When a burning ship sends a distress call, the rescue ship creates a close call. When a helicopter flies into a high-tension wire, tensions get high. And a farmer from down under spends a night down under his tractor.
I was likely to die.
A fireman falls. A puppy's heart stalls. And a race car hits the wall.
A terrible crash on the back straightaway!
Think you've seen it all? Now see this. One late model dirt track racer is about to have his love for the sport put to a catastrophic test. Crashes are part of the job. Being torn to smithereens isn't. At least, not until today. Veteran driver Jack Bland is driving orange car number 41 as the group takes their warm-up laps at Hagerstown Raceway in Maryland.
Now 10 laps of distance, 5 cars to qualify.
Several cars back is Jack's good friend DJ Myers in car 70. They've been friends for 15 years off the track. But it's all business here. And this business is about to get very violent.
On the point, there's the green flag.
The race gets underway, and the cars quickly accelerate. Jack Bland is in third position, close to the rail.
Bernhazel out front. Car number 19, Gary Stuhler, moving to the outside into second place.
This is the place for Jack to make his move. And then, as Jack's orange car slides toward the outside, in front of car 01, it happens.
Back straightaway! A terrible crash on the back straightaway! A terrible crash!
It happened so fast that Jack didn't have time to react. Car 01 just tapped his rear bumper.
We touched, and the front of his car touched the back of mine, and it just made my car make a right-hand turn. There's an opening there where the trucks come through the racetrack, and that's where I hit. I never even got to let off the gas, hit the brake or anything. It just went wide open into the fence.
As Jack comes back off the fence, his friend DJ Myers slams into what's left of his car.
Red flag! Red flag! A terrible crash on the back straightaway! Red flag! Red flag! Everybody stand back and let the qualified personnel get in there!
Quickly, the pit crews move in to deal with the wreckage. Unbelievably, DJ Myers is able to get out and walk away. They turn to Jack's car, prepared for the worst.
Man, that is fucking terrible. He ain't gonna make it.
You can barely see him through the wreckage. And then suddenly, he moves. He raises his hand. Somehow in the midst of this twisted carnage, he's managed to survive.
When I woke up after the wreck, I remember looking up and seeing a friend of mine, Nathan Durbo. He was there trying to keep me awake. I think I was going in and out. I knew that there was something wrong with my leg because it was under the seat and the motor was back up in the car. I could tell that.
The rescue crew works quickly to cut away the razor-edged metal. But there is a problem in the way this powerful car is built. The rescue equipment can't cut through this high tensile steel.
I remember him taking a jaws of life and trying to cut the roll bars away from the side of my car to get me out, and the jaws wouldn't cut it.
DJ Myers and the other drivers watch helplessly as it takes rescue workers almost 40 minutes to cut Jack out of the car. Finally, they remove the last obstacle, pulling the bent and mangled steering wheel from the car. The paramedics carefully prepare to lift Jack from the seat. In moments, Jack is placed on a gurney and rushed to the hospital. Meanwhile, his car is scooped up and hoisted off the track and dragged away to the junkyard. It's not coming back.
I've wrecked some cars before, and that was probably the worst one I've ever been in. There wasn't anything left of the car. You couldn't even tell it was a race car. It just looked like a pile of junk.
Although the car is scrapped, Jack's career is not.
I got another new car and a motor, and I've been racing ever since. I haven't never quit.
Coming through that turn, and there's the wave of the green flag.
As quickly as it happened, Jack Bland is back racing. For him, it was an easy decision, regardless of what happens on the track.
A terrible crash on the back straightaway.
John Zanetti, a farmer from Nowra, Australia, has just spent the night pinned under this tractor. The fact that he has survived this long is nothing short of a miracle. Rescuers will soon discover that he's had to endure not just a single life-threatening injury, but a host of potentially fatal circumstances.
I think I feel any pain, I don't know how, but I was relaxed. I was accepting that it was the end of life, and I was waiting to die.
When rescue workers arrived to help, Zanetti had been trapped alone for almost 20 hours. But they cannot simply move the tractor for fear that it may sever the farmer's limbs. Zanetti had gotten off the tractor to check on some newly planted chestnut seedlings, but he forgot to turn off the engine. By the time he saw the machine coming toward him, it was too late. His foot had become lodged beneath the wheel, and his arm was pinned against the tree. It didn't take long for the reality of his situation to sink in. Zanetti was amidst thousands of acres of remote farmland, in a place where no one could hear him call for help.
The tractor was running on top of me, and it was noisy, so I said, no use to scream. I just was waiting there, talking to God and say, that's it, I'm ready.
Zanetti was forced to spend the night in this precarious position.
I was hanging off, and with the right hand I was trying to push up all the time because my body was even pulling on this arm and this foot, I was hanging there.
But if he thought things couldn't get any worse, he was wrong. Zanetti soon realized that he was trapped on top of an anthill, and these are no ordinary ants. They're Australian bull ants, which can grow as long as 1 inch.
I saw these bullets were working all over me. I was watching them working away with a piece of skin on the mouth, and nothing else I could do.
But there's an amazing twist. Bull ants have glands that secrete a natural antibiotic over their bodies. So the same insects that are attacking him may actually be preventing a bacterial infection of Zanetti's arm. A helicopter is guided into the remote location with the help of an orange smoke signal. But before the tractor can be moved off Zanetti, there are many complications to consider.
And I said, we can't start it. I said, if you start the tractor, might be, to try to move it, would chop my arm out.
Zanetti may also be suffering from a common but little-known condition called crush syndrome. His traumatized muscles have been releasing an antitoxin protein. When the pressure is released, the excess protein will enter Zanetti's bloodstream and may cause a blockage in his kidneys. And as Zanetti's wife Lucia explains, it's even worse than it sounds.
The only problem is that John only has 1 kidney and his kidney wasn't functioning. So there was a big problem there.
To counteract the condition, rescue workers use a tourniquet to cut off circulation to the arm and leg. They then give him plenty of fluids and drugs to help counteract the protein buildup. Moving the machine will be a risky operation. They cannot simply put the tractor in reverse for fear that it may slip forward and sever Zanetti's limbs. Instead, they use another tractor as an anchor.
Brakes are off and it's out of 4-wheel drive.
And slowly winch the behemoth off the victim. Through it all, Zanetti only thinks of one thing, and it isn't himself.
I tried to relax, and I was thinking of the family, I was thinking about the kids.
Only after the tractor is pulled away does the severity of Zanetti's injuries become painfully clear. His arm is broken in 2 places, and his foot is crushed beyond recognition. At first sight, it seems inevitable that doctors will have to amputate both his foot and arm. But remarkably, Zanetti remains in high spirits. After having resigned himself to death, he is just happy to be alive. After 2 years of intense rehabilitation and physical therapy, Zanetti is again standing on his own 2 feet. And thanks to a patient and careful rescue crew, he's living life to the fullest.
I climb mountains and I ski, and I feel good physically.
Wind-whipped flames light up an otherwise pitch-black night in the North Atlantic. A British fishing boat is on fire off the coast of Scotland. The 5-man crew huddles on the bow, and as far from the blaze and choking smoke as they can get. Overhead, a Coast Guard helicopter videotapes everything and captures the vessel below bobbing and rocking like a toy boat in a bathtub.
With a fire on board on a small vessel is not the place you want to be. You can imagine you're 70 miles out in the North Sea on a winter's night, wind speeds 35, 40 knots. Well, obviously we've got to get these people off the vessel as quickly as possible.
Ironically, the name of the boat is the Be Ready, but the men on board are completely helpless. The fire has already destroyed their life rafts and two-way radio.
We hadn't any communications with the vessel.
Fortunately, before losing the radio, they were able to send out an emergency signal. Another fishing vessel, the Mizpah, has braved the ferocious seas to respond to the Be Ready's aid. The helicopter can't risk dropping a vertical hoist onto the ship's deck in this weather. Instead, it will coordinate with the Mizpah's crew to steer them close enough to deliver a rope from their bow. But there's close enough, and then there's too close. At this dangerous distance, a sudden swell could push the bows of the 2 ships together and knock everybody, including the rescuers, into the frigid waters. Incredibly, the Be Ready's crew is able to retrieve the rope as the Mizpah quickly withdraws. The men immediately start reeling in the line, which is attached to one of the Mizpah's life rafts. They tug and yank frantically, because the fire is growing by the second.
The 35 to 40 knot wind is adding more oxygen to the fire, so the flames are getting greater.
If they don't get into the raft soon, the flames will push them into the water. And while the fire gets more and more oxygen, the men are getting less and less. The thick smoke they're now inhaling is making physical exertion harder than ever, especially when their ship is already bucking like a bull. A hard, nearly horizontal rain does nothing to stop the flames, but it does decrease visibility. Somehow, they're able to get the raft close enough. They throw down a rope ladder. Now they have to lower themselves down this shaky lifeline and into the rolling raft. Timing will be everything.
You've got a relatively small life raft in quite a heavy sea, so there's a lot of movement on the life raft.
To further complicate their rescue, one of the rungs of their ladder is broken, close to the bottom, where they will need it most. One crew member boldly ventures out first, but the ship suddenly pitches and dips, and he must cling for his life as the smoke and spray buffet the hull. Climbing to the bottom of the ladder is not an option. The man must wait for the perfect moment and then jump onto the raft.
Which in the sea conditions and the movement of the vessel is a very tricky operation.
Bullseye. Encouraged by his fellow crew member's success, another man tries. Within minutes, 2 more have made successful leaps. Only one man still remains on board. Eager to exit the flaming vessel, he scrambles down as quickly as he can. But suddenly, his ladder is twisting in the wind. Incredibly, the elements push his life raft back below him. Now that the crew is secure under the raft's orange cover, it's up to the Coast Guard to complete the rescue. In the 20-foot swells, Murray has to get the men off the raft as quickly as possible.
Once the men were in the life raft, they cut themselves free and then drifted downwind away from the vessel. I was then winched into the water alongside the life raft.
Murray climbs aboard and secures 2 men at a time into the harness. While he waits behind, they'll be hoisted up to the chopper, but not before taking an accidental dip in the near freezing water. Seconds later, the first of 3 successful hoists is made. Amazingly, the men all survive with nothing worse than minor burns and smoke inhalation. An investigation later revealed the cause of the blaze. It seems that one of the crewmen had a wet dish towel that he wanted to dry out. So he set it over the top of a hot stove and fell asleep. That one careless decision opened the door to a nightmare of hellish proportions. To survive the extremes of fire, smoke, wind, and water, these men had to make an effort as great as the forces they faced. Dave. It's the dead of night in Wickliffe, Ohio. And for David Stanko, life has become unbearable. More than anything, he wants to die.
No, that's the only way out.
Officers have seen a large hunting knife, which he keeps behind his back.
Dave, who's the knife? I want to get you some help.
A former police officer, Stanko has now fallen on difficult times. Earlier today, he violated a restraining order when he tried to contact his ex-girlfriend, the mother of his little girl.
Dave, come on, pal.
Officers caught up with him here, where they found him looking at a photo of his daughter. Nearby on the ground, they picked up an unopened gift for the girl, a brand new Barbie doll.
I got the Barbie doll. I'm gonna save it over here, okay?
For officers, dealing with Stanko is a negotiator's nightmare. As a former police officer, he knows all the procedures and tricks to get a man like himself into custody. He knows the cops may try to incapacitate him by shooting him with non-lethal rounds of beanbags and balls made of blinding pepper spray. So he stays just out of range, while the negotiating officer tries to appeal to the cop in him.
Dave, we're all here. We're all on the same side, buddy.
But Stanko isn't persuaded, so they try appealing to the daddy in him. The negotiating officer knows that no father can resist sharing photos of his little girl.
Show me the picture, Dave. I'll put it in the Barbie doll, all right?
It works, and they begin to lure him over. Stanko makes a series of slow, tortured baby steps toward the officers. He appears weak-kneed, ready to pass out from the pressure.
Well, that's why I'm doing it, because I'm with you on this, all right? Now walk over here and look at the picture. Come on.
But he returns to his car, puts his jacket on, and then does something very ominous.
Dave.
As if to sever the last emotional bond between himself and his child, David Stanko starts to remove his little girl's car seat.
Don't need that, buddy. Dave. Don't need that.
As Stanko advances menacingly toward the officers, they try to disable him. But the beanbags and the pepper balls don't work.
Shut the door! Shut the door! Shut the door!
It's now a chase. Officers must stop him before he can reach a main road. At high speeds, and with his vision severely impaired from the pepper, Stanko is now a much greater threat than he ever was. To himself, to officers, and especially to innocent motorists. But how do you stop a man behind the wheel who's bent on killing himself? The officer moves in to perform the pit maneuver, which would force Stanko into a fishtail spin. But as an ex-cop, Stanko has had the same training. He knows that he can't let the pursuer get close enough to touch him. Again, he stays just out of reach. On the open road, Stanko pushes his Oldsmobile as hard as he can. He gets up to 110 miles an hour, easily outracing his pursuer, but a unit ahead is set at a spike strip. With a punctured tire, he skids wildly all over the road. When the officer catches up, he sees that Stanko has somehow managed to regain control. But the damage has been done. Within minutes, Stanko's right rear tire is smoking and the rim is sparking. Stanko careens onto the wrong side of the road. Officers know that his vehicle won't be able to last too much longer in this condition. They move up to head him off at the intersection, and Stanko desperately steers left, but it's no use. His car is completely disabled. And again, the officers have to be ready for anything. Stanko emerges from his car, and incredibly, the officers find themselves back at square one. In a standoff with a suicidal man.
Come on, David, you know better than this.
This time, Stanko is more determined than ever to succeed, but so are the officers. When he raises his knife to his head, the officers take careful aim and open fire on him again with non-lethal rounds.
Come on, David.
This time, they won't let him escape. They quickly rush the car and forcibly extract him. The officers separate him from his weapon, and David Stanko is finally safe from himself. This ex-cop thought he had nothing left to live for. But these officers knew that he did.
I got the Barbie dog.
Thanks to their willingness to do anything to save his life, David Stanko will finally get the help he needs. When you're a fireman racing to put out a blaze, there are two things you know for sure. One, things are bound to go wrong. And two, you can't let them stop you from doing your job. In South Central Los Angeles, this fire is spreading rapidly to the building next door. This captain hurries to join his men on the roof. As he is about to step off, he falls. The other firemen tell him not to move until they get some help. But the captain isn't going to wait for anyone.
Hey, Captain, you all right? Yeah.
Because he knows fire isn't going to wait for him. In seconds, the captain is back up the ladder and back on the job. In New Jersey, firefighters at a 3-arm house fire have even bigger troubles. The crew is called in a second engine. They need him to get up there and get up there fast. But suddenly, the fire isn't the only thing out of control. Firemen scatter when the engine's brakes fail. The driver is frustrated by the faulty equipment. But he has to work with it now, because this fire is still going, and they need him to get into position. He quickly decides he can use the transmission as a brake, and he backs the rig into place. Soon, everyone's attention is back on the blaze. They'll have to deal with the truck tomorrow. In Hobart, Australia, gale force winds of 80 miles an hour are turning this city into a raging inferno. The firefighters have memories of a similar fire here in 1989 that killed 62 people and destroyed over 1,200 homes. Relying on ground equipment is not going to be enough. It seems insane to fly a chopper in this wind. And with all this smoke, it's almost impossible to see. But you can't refuse when so many lives are at stake. Trying to get low enough to evaluate the direction and intensity of the fire, the helicopter suddenly gets a jolting surprise. The craft is stopped dead and thrown backward by a high-voltage power line. Unable to see underneath his chopper, the pilot is flying only by feel. He very carefully lifts the helicopter until the tension is off the power line. He then works the wire free from the devices hanging below the ship. Finally, he's able to back out very slowly. But again, There is only time to land quickly, check the equipment, and make sure the damage to the aircraft is not crippling. And in seconds, they're back into the inferno. This is the way it always goes in the firefighter's world. Whether it's a potential crash, a fender bender, or a bone-wrenching fall. These guys don't let anything stop them. In Camden, New Jersey, firefighters extinguished the last of a blaze that has gutted 4 attached row houses. And while some have lost everything, the residents are all safe, or so it appears. It's during this secondary search that a tiny victim emerges from the ashes. It's a puppy, less than 2 weeks old and suffering from smoke inhalation. And it's handed over to medical personnel, who are well trained to handle human victims. But a newborn pooch? The oxygen mask is way too large for its tiny face, but it's the only equipment the medics have. Then patient number 2. It's a sibling of the first puppy, and also a litter mate of 2 more dogs. A total of 4 newborns are tended to in a makeshift canine triage. Incredibly, the oversized masks are working, and the pups are soon nursed back to health. It seems there were many dogs that lived here, and each one that emerges is a miracle of survival. This adult is reunited with its owner and given a good drying off. But just like the humans today, the dogs are frightened, confused, and sad. All the old familiar sights and smells of the home are now just a memory. But on a day when so much was lost, the special bond between pet and human was saved.